what's the Torah perspective on health and putting in our hishtadlus, that means making efforts, in taking care of our bodies and physical needs? Rabbi Kelemen often mentions the need for getting sufficient sleep, exercise, and eating well. I would enjoy a deep dive into Torah sources for this. I am drawn to a healthy lifestyle, and I know that it's based in Torah. However, even at our children's Jewish schools and shul, it's as if taking care of our bodies isn't important from a Torah perspective. Treats are given out constantly. Holiday programs are late at night. I have to push for alternative snacks to be available at our shul and won't let my children attend the Shabbos group where they provide only the most processed cakes, donuts, and ice cream during shul time before Kiddush or lunch. Although I've spoken to the rabbi about my concerns and why I don't want my children in that group, he was only willing to change the snacks in a different group since he believes that children will only attend that Shabbos group if they're given the most unhealthy, ultra-processed foods. So, wow. It's a good question, and I think you're probably not alone. I've heard this complaint from other people. Let's just start at the beginning. There are many Torah sources for taking proper care of one's body. One of the most often cited is Maimonides, Rambam, writing in his magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah. There in Hilchos Deos, chapter 4, the first halacha, the Rambam writes as follows. He says, "Hoil ve'yot haguf bari v'shalem midarkei Hashem hu," since one of God's ways is that we should keep our body healthy and complete. Sharei iefshar shavin oyeda davar miyadiyat habori, because you can't understand anything about knowledge of God hu choleh, when you're sick. Lefikach tzarich laharchik adam atzmo midvarim hama'agim et haguf. Therefore, a person should distance himself from those things which damage his body. And he should conduct himself in a way that makes his body healthy and helps it recover. And then, in separate sections, Rambam goes on to praise getting the right amount of sleep, eating a proper diet, and getting proper exercise. He mentions all three. Okay, now, I want to offer an advertisement. So there's a great book, and I actually don't see it in front of me right now. I had it on my desk a little while ago. There's a superb, I would call it a modern sefer, that explores the topic of halacha and lifestyle in depth. It was written by a good friend of mine. His name is Michael Kaufman, and the book is called Am I My Body's Keeper? It is a gem. It's published by Urim Publishers. And if you want to do a deep dive into sources that deal with how you're supposed to take care of your body, this book is it. Am I My Body's Keeper? I can't recommend it highly enough. In fact, I don't think I've ever done this in Inner Circle before, but I would actually like to read to you a few paragraphs from his book. At the beginning of the book, he tells an unbelievable story. I mean, believable, but spectacular. And I want to read to you what he writes. Michael Kaufman writes, quote, "For about 2 years," this is in the book, "for about 2 years, I was fortunate to learn Bechavrusa with the Magid every morning at 4 a.m. He's talking about Rosh Shalom Shvadron. He had a Chavrusa at 4 a.m. every day with Rosh Shalom Shvadron. This daily learning, by the way, obviously Michael Kaufman is a Talmud Chacham. He's a serious Talmud Chacham. And he had this Chavrusa with a very big Talmud Chacham as well. This daily learning turned out to be a glimpse into a great Torah mind. During this period, I enjoyed jogging in the hills surrounding Jerusalem. Armed with a then popular personal tape player called a Walkman, which contained recordings of Shirim and Gemara, by the way, you can date this and figure out how far back this must be, I would run for about an hour, simultaneously exercising my body and nourishing my soul. Like other sports activities, running as an exercise is acceptable in its proper setting. For me, the proper setting for running in Jerusalem was in the middle of the night or very early in the morning when I would be inconspicuous. Following my run and a quick shower, I would be at the Magid's home by 4 a.m. I had been keeping to the schedule for some months, rarely seeing anyone out on the streets at that hour, and never anyone I knew. When, one night, nearing the end of my regular route, I was running along Usishkin, a street bordering Jerusalem's Sharei Chesed neighborhood, when I spotted a familiar figure walking in my direction. It couldn't be, I thought, as I continued running towards the figure, but it was. I was about to pass none other than Rabbi Shalom Schwadron, with whom I was about to learn in a few minutes. Now, Rav Shalom was a conservative Yerushalmi Jew, and I imagined that for him, seeing a mature man running in the streets was a curious phenomenon, to say the least. The fact that the runner was someone with whom he had a daily chavrusa would make it even more remarkable. Moshe Michael, I said to myself, you have inadvertently provided the Maggid with some juicy material for one of his drashas. After a bracing shower, I took my Gemara and I made my way apprehensively through the narrow lanes of Shari Chesed to the home of the Maggid. I knocked lightly, and Rav Shalom opened the door and led the way inside. He lived in a tiny two-room apartment that lacked some of the basic amenities that people take for granted. What it did not lack was books. The modest main room was lined with books, floor to ceiling. Rav Shalom devoted his days to copying and publishing the writings of his renowned grandfather, the Maharsham, after who he had been named. He had produced some 25 books towards this end. As I sat down at the table opposite him and opened my Gemara, I steeled myself for the inevitable words of reproach about my running through the streets. He said nothing for what seemed an inordinately long time, and then asked, "Did you remember to say, Hineni Muchan?" I was taken aback. As is well known, Hineni Muchan, I am prepared, is the introduction of a formulaic text of intent recited prior to performing certain mitzvahs so that they are carried out with the proper kavanah. Hineni Muchan, what? I asked, puzzled. Hineni Muchan u'mezumen l'kayim mitzvah deraisa v'nishmartem me'od l'nafshosechem. Behold, I am preparing myself to fulfill the Torah precept, quote, and you shall take very good care of your bodies, he replied. Do you remember to say it before going running? Rabbi Schwadron smiled. He said, do you remember to say it before running? Rabbi Shalom smiled and he said, you're running in order to improve your health, which is admirable. Our purpose in life is to serve our Creator, and we can do so only if we are healthy and our bodies are well taken care of. He's like quoting the Rambam. Chazal taught regarding the pasuk, "B'chol d'rechecha de'ehu," know him in all your practices, even in those practices that you do to care for your body. All of them should be performed to serve your Creator or bring about such service. When you run, you perform a mitzvah. He then told me once, when he visited his physician, the doctor directed him to exercise regularly since his day-long occupation sitting and learning Torah and editing the Torah Chidushim of his grandfather was totally sedentary. In accordance with this directive from his doctor, every half hour, Rabbi Schwadron would get up and walk across his room several times. Since his walking was exercise, and he was exercising in order to be healthy and strong to serve God, Rav Shalom never failed to recite the Hineni Muchan prayer of Kavanah each time he stood up before taking his exercise break. And from that moment on, so did I. To this day, prior to performing exercise activity of any kind, I take a moment to recite the Hineni Muchan in accordance with the example set by the Maggid. This is such a beautiful story told by Michael Kaufman in his book, Am I My Body's Keeper? I highly recommend them. So I'll just say, you have to take note that there are many Orthodox rabbis that are not only careful to get proper food, sleep, and exercise as part of their avodas Hashem, part of their service of God, but they also teach their students and congregants to follow the same example. There is even an organization of Orthodox rabbis in America called, quote, Rabbis Can Run, that has trained dozens of Orthodox rabbis, and you'll be shocked. These are people from across the political spectrum, from knitted kippot to black hats and streimels. And this organization, Rabbis Can Run, trains them to run marathons. Along with the training that they get, they meet every year. All together, all these rabbis come together, either to participate in the Jerusalem Marathon or a special Rabbis Can Run marathon in Florida. And I've heard the director of the organization, Mayor Keneal, give his classes. Their curriculum has as much Torah in it as it does physical guidance. It's really an extraordinary organization. And again, you might think it's a left-wing organization if they're teaching rabbis to run. And when you see the rabbis who are members of it, they're not primarily left-wing. There's certainly left-wing people left-wing rabbis who also run, but there's middle of the road, there's right-wing rabbis, Hasidim, you name it. across the board. He has trained dozens and dozens of rabbis to run marathons. So I just want to point out that it's not like the Orthodox world is oblivious to these sorts of concepts. Still, your question stands. Maimonides gave his advice almost 1,000 years ago. The Pasuk is 3,300 years old, that you should guard your body very carefully. And there are still pockets within our communities where there is minimal health awareness. I think your rabbi was no doubt correct that many children will refuse to attend his Shabbos playgroups if he switches from donuts to carrot and celery sticks. And that's legit. The rabbi should be taking that into account. If the children come to the group, they might fall in love with Torah. And if they learn enough Torah, eventually they'll learn that God cares not only whether their food is technically kosher, but whether it's healthy too. But if the kids get turned off and they don't come to the Torah learning group, then they may never fall in love with learning Torah, and then they'll never discover all the Torah's wise guidance when it comes to so many areas of life, including our health. So I think the problem isn't really the rabbi who gives out donuts and ice cream. I think the problem is that most of the parents in your shul eat the donuts and ice cream too. And the problem is that we as a community need chinuch. We need guidance in many areas. And one of the areas in which we need guidance is how to guard our bodies in keeping with the verse in the Torah, "V'nishmartem me'odas nafshosechem." Okay, that is a very interesting challenge. Maybe you, the inner circle member, can contribute to this really important project. Today, I've noticed, you've probably noticed as well, people learn much more from videos and audio than they do from books. I know that the Torah Live Foundation has produced powerful, really effective videos for children that convey Jewish values. Those videos, I've talked to kids, I can tell you those videos are changing children in deep and profound ways. The Torah Live Foundation. And perhaps you could work with Torah Live on a series based on V'nishmartem me'odas nafshosechem, or you could start your own production company. And as I said, it's not just children who learn from videos today, so do adults. I'll give you one example where I've seen the tremendous impact films can have on the way that people behave. The film Forks Over Knives single-handedly converted more meat eaters into vegetarians and vegans than any English language book ever written. That shows you the power of film. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people who became vegans and vegetarians because they saw a flick, they saw a movie. So if the producers of Forks Over Knives changed adults' minds and their behavior in such a fundamental way when it comes to diet, then certainly a From Film production company could help adults in our communities come to value proper food, sleep, and exercise. What I'm saying is that if you notice that there's a problem in our community, maybe that's Hashem whispering to you, saying that you have some responsibility for solving that problem. I know it's always easier to point a finger at everyone else than to roll up one's sleeves and get to work, but this might be a glorious opportunity that Hashem is offering to you. So I agree with you. You noticed the problem. You put your finger on a problem. And who knows? Maybe you're part of it.
I hope you liked that answer from Rabbi Kelemen. If you'd like to listen to more questions and answers and ask your own questions, as well as listen to brand new material that Rabbi Kelemen is producing right now, check it out at LawrenceKelemen.com. You put in your name and email address and we'll send you free lectures from all the new material Rabbi Kelemen has been publishing. Let us know if you have any questions. info@LawrenceKelemen.com.